Good evening and welcome to episode 289 of the 2025 Week 2 CFL podcast from the Canadian Football Countdown. My name is Adam Stewart alongside Trey Colbeck, Ryan Coop, and Brandon Saunders this week. Brandon, of course, means that we've got a real special episode lined up here. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the future players in the CFL that have joined up into the CFL. Some may be looking for NFL opportunities, some looking just to get a job, period. Brandon seems to have a really good sense on who you should be looking at and who's the next guys in the CFL, mostly from the American side of who's coming in and everything like that, as well as some of the Canadians that were playing in the NCAA as well. Before we get going here, I do want to introduce the panel here this evening formally. First, let's start with the guy down in the bottom here, Trey. How you doing this evening?
And his internet.
Yeah. Trey seems to be having some internet connection issues. Ryan, how about we go to you for a quick second? How you doing this evening?
Oh, well, I'm doing good. Hopefully we get Trey's internet sorted out here shortly. But last week I talked about how I was going to disappear from the podcast for a lot this summer, and I handed you guys the keys and was going to leave, and then Brandon said he wanted to come back, so I figured I would come back this week as well. I'm not going to miss having Brandon here. One of my favorite episodes every year. No, I'll still be around for a little bit, as I talked about last week, but I'm doing good. I've been busy on social media this week, which has been a little bit weird, trying to do more social media stuff, more written stuff for the podcast lately, with my on-air presence not here quite as much throughout the year. And that's been kind of fun, and we've got a fun new segment to kick off the show coming out of that. So looking forward to that here shortly as well. Trey, is your internet working?
I think so, but Adam's just talking to himself because he's muted like an idiot again. So that's kind of messing with me. But yeah, I think my internet's okay.
Hey guys, true professional.
Yeah, true professional. I'm doing okay. I mean, God, I can't wait till my kids' baseball season is done. But other than that, we're doing okay. Yeah, watching a bunch of 7-year-olds play baseball is like watching paint dry. But I'm excited to talk football, and we got Brandon here. So yeah, Brandon, how you doing, buddy? You know, Adam's probably muted still, so we may as well see how you're doing.
I don't think he is now. So he is. He's back to muted. Anyway, I'm doing great. Doing great. I think last time was February, so it's a lot less colder here in the States now. Out of all those players we talked about, only one survived on the watch. So hey, we get to talk about one of those guys and some newer guys too. So I'm pretty excited. Get to talk week 2 with you guys and talk about what we saw in week 1. I'm excited.
Should be a great time. Yes, Trey, I did learn how to use my unmute button. That was always nice. It probably won't be the first time. Definitely won't be the first time or the last time that happens tonight. Nevertheless, I did want to run through a couple little things that we got to go through at the beginning of the episode here. Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. Learn more by visiting GameTimeTV.ca or by following Facebook at Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. And as always, we do want to acknowledge the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Sinanabwe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples and homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and of the Métis Nation. Hey, and if you're getting a chance here and you're checking this out tonight, great. If you really want to have some more fun with us and interact with us all week, essentially, make sure to join our Discord channel. We've got Brandon in there usually giving us some good advice for fantasy picks for new guys that are in the league. Ryan always has his own fantasy picks, which usually are pretty good. Or you can listen to me and get 60 points, whichever you decide, I suppose. Nevertheless, Trey's always in there with horse racing or bugging me to buy some sort of chemical for my canola. But nevertheless,
it's an ag biological. It's an ag biological. There's no chemicals, Adam.
Okay. That's good. We got that out of the way. But nevertheless, hey, join us on our Discord channel. We're always having fun there. Usually, our fans beat us to posting stuff, but you know what? You get the latest CFL news there, all in one place. Speaking of the Discord channel, and I know Ryan, you posted this up over on our social media channels about what people wanted to talk about, and I guess we got something. Ryan, what do we got going on this week for Hot Take?
Yeah, the question actually came from Mike originally. He put it in the Discord and I spread it out to the social media of, week one of the CFL season is in the books. Naturally, it's time for everybody to have the most egregious overreactions possible. Either you're planning the parade or the entire world is falling apart around you after week one is in the books. So Mike asked for everybody's hot takes. And we got a couple of good ones. We got a handful of people weighing in with their reactions. A lot of people don't know what a hot take is, but maybe we'll work on that as the season goes along. But new segment to kick off the show every week, hopefully going forward, is the hot take challenge here on the podcast, where you send in your hot takes to us every single week about the previous week in the CFL. I will pick 3 of them for us here on the podcast. I'll read them off for you all. We'll touch on them, and then everybody here will vote on which of those is our hot take champion of the week. Very BC Lions heavy group of hot takes this week. People had a lot of strong takes on that game. So I'll go through them here. I'll read them off for you guys, and I'll get you each to weigh in on your thoughts on collectively the 3 of them, and maybe your vote for which one is the hottest. Let's start with Chris Lawton from Blue Sky, who said, and this is one near and dear to my heart, Brady Oliveira is going to need a big season to stop Nathan Rourke from getting MOC at year's end. This is, of course, after Nathan Rourke had a very good first game of the season this week against the Edmonton Elks, which he typically does. Also from Blue Sky, we had Mike Bodner saying Montreal and BC need a bit of work. Everyone else needs a lot of work. Not surprising for first week of action and decent set of games. So a big take on the league as a whole there. And then we also had from Sandwiches in the Discord, the aforementioned Discord community, the Buck Pierce head coach signing in BC has the chance to overcome the perceived deficiencies of the offense. Balance in the passing run game will soon become apparent, and there will be a significant impact on Butler's season. Those are 3 top hot takes to choose from of the week. Make sure you send in yours next week as well when I put up the social media posts. Let's go to you first, Trey. What you thinking on these 3 hot takes?
Well, I can answer all 3 hot takes with one of my own hot takes. Is I think the BC Lions are the most overrated team in the league for the last 4 years, 3-4 years, and they'll continue to be. They just I think they got off easy with Edmonton, still putting their stuff together week one, and so that's kind of my way of answering all 3 is, Nathan Rourke could be the MOC, but I think the whole team's just overrated. Not that they're bad. I just don't think that they're this God-given great team that kind of the perception is. And, I don't know. I him and Haw back with it where Nathan Rourke's really good, but if he was really good, would he be in the NFL? I kind of go back and forth on that one a little bit too. So that's kind of where I'm at answering that one. Adam?
I actually think that I kind of look at this and kind of disagree with you, Trey. I think Nathan Rourke looked really, really good against a Edmonton linebacking core that should be number 1 in the league. Honestly, I thought that Edmonton defense was okay. It's just that you're right. Nathan Rourke learned how to carve him up a little bit. And overall, if he keeps playing like this, I think he'll be okay. That being said, I'm kind of nervous about Nathan Rourke running this much this soon, because if he starts running, he's going to be in trouble, because that offensive line is not quite what it used to be. And you've seen it even, I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but James Butler did not have a really good run game day, and that's usually a tribute to offensive line. Be interesting to see what happens. It's so hard to tell by week 1. I mean, is BC that good? Is Edmonton that bad? I don't think that Edmonton's that bad, and I don't think BC's that great. But you know what? It sure looked like it when they played this week. And I think, it could be a lot of factors in that. So Yeah, I was quite impressed with the Edmonton defense as a whole. For again a guy like Nathan Rourke. Nate Rourke did a good job to keep him contained. Ryan, what was your hot take? Out of those ones, I guess it was probably the Nathan Rourke one. MOC.
Nathan Rourke for MOC gets Adam's vote. Trey, you touched. You kind of gave your own hot take there. Of the three that came in from the fans, which one's the hottest one to you?
I guess I'll go with number 3, that Montreal and BC need a bit of work, because that's kind of online with me too, that I think both teams aren't as good as people say.
I'm going with, of the three, my biggest one is the first one, the Buck Pierce one, because we have talked all off season, I feel like, about BC doesn't have that depth at receiver. We expect Nathan Rourke to have that bounce back this year, but he doesn't have the depth, but he's going to make the depth happen. And Buck Pierce is that guy who has been very good and helped lead Bombers offense to 5 straight Grey Cup appearances, but really has not gotten, I feel like, a ton of credit, and often gets discredit for his questionable game plan here and there at times. And so, that one's the spiciest one of these to me, to say that signing of the head coach, especially when, guys being named a first-time head coach in the CFL, they don't always pan out, right? We've had, look at BC themselves with Devon Claybrooks a couple of years ago, when everyone touted this guy's ready for the next head coach job, and it just didn't work out for them. So I like, shout out to Sandwiches. I like that take on the Buck Pierce signing, and I'm very excited for Butler's usage in that BC offense this year. Brandon, that means luckily you're here to break the tie, because we've got 3 votes for 3 different takes. What are your thoughts on these ones?
To be honest, I would say like Nathan Rourke for MOC. That's most likely. I still think Oliveira is going to be in the running there. So I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's kind of like a nice mild salsa, like very mild, like nice, like that's a given. I do like the Buck Pierce one the most. I do think him coming over from Winnipeg. Although Butler didn't really show out per se, but he looked like he was flowing pretty well within the system. I get it, like O-line probably needs some help, right? But Butler looks comfortable back in BC, if that makes sense. Like it looked like it was a nice return to, and maybe he'll come back to form, things like that. So I'm probably going to go with the Buck Pierce take. I think that's pretty solid.
I think that settles the tie. Sandwiches from the Discord is our hot take champion of the week. Congratulations to you. We do not have any sort of budget for this podcast to give you a prize, but you get the honor of knowing that 2 out of the 4 of us here tonight, 50% of people said your pick was better than 2 others and all the others in the field. So
we'll get him the flaming emojis of Discord. So shout out to Sandwiches. He gets flaming emojis instead.
Yeah, there we go. And then, if any like hot wings, hot sauce company, etc. wants to sponsor this segment, reach out to us on social media going forward. But yeah, that's hot takes of the week. Bunch of pretty mild ones, to be honest. So I hope folks bring it on all the social media this coming week, and in the YouTube comments and whatever.
Yeah, you always start off with the mild wings. You don't start off with the hots right off the bat. So you got to go with the milds and then work your way up. So, no, really good for the first week of this. Let's move on, I guess, into game previews for the week. We're going to start off on Thursday Night Football. I don't think I have made up any of the little things on the bottom here. Oh, they are made up. Great. The BC Lions are going to be traveling on a short week out to Winnipeg to take on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Storylines in this game here. Let's start with that. And then we will move over to Brandon next afterwards to talk about the BC and the Winnipeg player that he thinks are going to look good this year. But let's do storylines first in this game here. Actually, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and tell us one of the storylines you're watching for in the BC Winnipeg game?
Sure. I'm looking towards the actual matchup between BC and Winnipeg. Of course, 3 out of 4 of us are Winnipeg fans, so we're looking forward to the debut. We get to see Strevy in action. I'm always stoked to see some Chris Streveler, not Ryan. But me and Trey like Strevy, so that's all that matters. You just want to see him run around and do cool stuff. And as long as we got Terry Wilson, we'll be all right. And we got Oliveira, so I'm pretty excited about that. Shout out to Oliveira. Play him in fantasy if you can. BC, I do want to see what they're made of. This is their true, I would say, first competition. Nothing against Edmonton. It's just on paper. You can't see what a defense can do on paper. Whereas Winnipeg has in the past have been able to overcome BC quite often. I wouldn't say they have their number. I would say Ryan would maybe think that, but I don't. I just think Winnipeg, has gotten a lot better when it comes to going against BC. So this will be Nathan Rourke's true test, I think, for week 2 to see how he does. Can he carve up a better defense in Winnipeg? True contenders, for the Western Division, things like that. So those are the things I'm kind of looking at. How Brady is looking, off the off season, how well he's done with his training, and then just to see the progression of Terry Wilson. Honestly, I would love to see him do some more short yardage and maybe get some vulture TDs. And hopefully, if things don't go good with Strevy, maybe we can put Terry Wilson in there. We got the pieces. I'm also looking forward to the breakout season of Carrick Wheatfall. I think a couple of us have said that privately in the Discord chat. I think Wheatfall is in for a big season this year. And don't sleep on my boy Jared Stearns. He's the sleeper pick. I like him at the slot back. So I'm excited to see him in Winnipeg gold and blue for the first time. That'll make me very happy. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Perfect. Ryan, why don't you run with your storylines for this week?
Yeah, I think my storyline is a lot of what Brandon said already, right? It's seeing Winnipeg for the first time. Everybody every year inevitably thinks this is the year Winnipeg's going to take the step back, and then every year they seem to make it back to the Grey Cup in some capacity. And last year they started the season 0-4 and 2-6 at the start of the year, and it did not look good at all, and they turned it around. And this year they certainly have the challenge of, QB1 Zach Collaros being suspended for the first game of the season, and Chris Streveler filling in there. And, can Chris Streveler actually show he's got it as a passer in this game against BC, or is he just going to be slamming into those BC linebackers all night long is interesting to me. And just what that Winnipeg receiving core looks like. Brandon talked a lot about those pieces already. And on the other side of things, it's, how does BC follow up last week against Edmonton? Maybe one of the bigger storylines is the Buck Pierce homecoming here, as we just talked about him before as the head coach BC coming back to Winnipeg. And we know Buck has some tricks up his sleeve here and there. So what's he going to pull out against Winnipeg here? And I feel like Nathan Rourke, as good as he has been, has always struggled against the Bombers, going back to that 2022 season. Despite them playing lights out, those couple of games against Winnipeg, he struggled last year. He really struggled against them. Granted, I feel like it was Tyrell Ford who had his number, and he's now over in Edmonton and clearly didn't on, Sunday night. And as I ramble more, the last quick one is the rest versus the short rest for BC coming from Sunday to Thursday and traveling to Winnipeg versus Winnipeg, who hasn't played a game yet. And I don't truly think that plays a ton into things this early in the season, but we'll have to wait and see. Trey, what you got for this game?
Well, I got one major storyline, and it has to do with the best looking quarterback that's going to be on starting. And surprisingly, if you asked a casual fan that wouldn't know this, the guy who played more time in the NFL, and that's my boy Chris Streveler, getting the start. I think it's a little interesting because a lot of times when he started, it's off after an injury, but this suspension was known for some time. He's been knowing that he's going to get it. He got a lot of reps in the preseason, and it's hard to take a lot of stock in preseason, but there was times where I was like, oh shit, is that Chris Streveler in with some of the throws he was making? I thought maybe it was a younger Zach Collaros or some third string guy I've never seen before. And then I'm like, nope, he's doing the Conor McGregor walk after a throw. That's Streveler. So I'm really interested to see that, but I'm also interested to see Nathan Rourke too, because, oh man, I'll never let it go if Chris Streveler beats him. Then I'll be like, yeah, I was right. BC's overrated. So, right, Adam? Oh God, you're going to get so many texts on Thursday if they win. I hope you know that.
Oh, I'm aware, but I hope you send a bunch to Ryan also to say that Chris Streveler deserves to hit the Hall of Fame. I guess if he does beat Nathan Rourke.
Isn't that wild? Streveler's played enough NFL games to get a pension, and Rourke couldn't even crack anything. It's so stupid to think about.
It's who you like. Honestly, I think the NFL, and you'll always hear me say it, it's who you like and who's your buddy. It seems to really be in the NFL. I mean, there's certain guys in there that wouldn't crack a CFL roster, and yet they're starters in the NFL. and yet
You're not
then there's some and then there's some CFL players that would probably, again, they'd be full starters. I mean, think about some of the quarterbacks in our league. I don't care. You could argue it, and I would say that Bo Levi Mitchell in his prime was probably a better starter than quite a few NFL starters that there is. I mean, it could be a hot take if you want it, but like I said, I believe that. I honestly do. I mean, Eli Manning, or even who did they have this last time here? Before Eli, or after
It didn't
Eli?
matter.
Who was
It was Daniel Jones. He's not good. Anyway, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Anyway,
they got Russell Wilson now, which we'll see.
Bo Levi Mitchell or Russell Wilson? I don't know. Right now, I'd probably still take.
Currently, I'll take Bo Levi Mitchell, please.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to move on to one little thing on this game. Then we'll move on to Brandon's players to watch. The only thing I'm really looking at is this game here is the offensive lines. BC last week, I thought that their offensive line wasn't too bad for what exactly was one of those things that we were kind of looking at as maybe a problem in BC. I thought they were okay for what they did. And the other side of the football, too, on the offensive line. Winnipeg is Eric Lofton this week. He's already hurt, I believe. Or did I say that right? Come on, somebody point me out wrong. Oh, look, I actually did one right for once. Anyways, Lofton's out. There's a bunch of changes in the offensive line. It's not the same offensive line that it used to be. I want to see what Winnipeg does with this new offensive line. Maybe they'll be good. I mean, they still have enough pieces in there from veterans to help them, right? I mean, Patrick Newfield's still there. Stanley Bryant is still there. But they are starting to transition to a younger offensive line. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that part, especially with them relying quite a bit usually on Brady Oliveira carrying the football 15, 16 times at minimum, and most times even more than that. So, yeah, be interesting to see what happens there. Let's move on, though, to the players to watch in this game. And the two new players that we want to talk about. We'll go with the BC Lions first. Let's see if I got this right. Let's hope this works. Brandon, you can take it away from here.
Sure. Let's talk about Xander Horvath, who came from Purdue as well. Let me pull this up real quick for us. His college stats, he played 2 years at Wake Forest and then he moved over to Purdue. At Purdue, he did 268 rushing attempts, 1,181 rushing yards for 8 rushing touchdowns. He had 68 receptions and 592 receiving yards. He did have a receiving touchdown, and he miraculously did 72 kick return yards. This dude is 6'3" and 240 pounds. So needs to say anything that he can get actually return yards. That's not too shabby whatsoever. But Horvath is a great addition. When looking at preseason, just watching him, I know it was like preseason game 1, and Calgary was just trying to figure out what to do, basically. Same thing with BC on the other side, and they're playing over on the island over there. But Horvath pretty much made a name for himself in those 2 preseason games, being nice and steady, gaining really good chunk yards and things like that. And that's what he was known for. He's 26, so he's had some time in the NFL as a fullback, and so that's the position, like when you have the quarterback sneak, or you have your bigger guy, or fullback like we have here in the CFL as well. Basically, he's meant to kind of just get those extra yardage, but when he was able to be an actual running back here at Purdue, he's able to get usually over 5-6 yards per carry, and he was very standard. As far as like his college fantasy production, I kind of changed it up. I kind of go on a level basically, and his was like mid to low, so 15 fantasy points or lower most times, but it was a nice steady pace. So like if he was to play and got the opportunity to run, depending, I don't hope nothing happens with Butler, but in the case that Butler goes down, I think Horvath could actually be a little bit better about gaining extra chunk yards or getting more yards after the play, if that makes sense. So if he can elongate and get those better first downs, that's kind of what we want to look for. But fantasy production, he, solid 15 points or under. So if you're looking for a good floor, we like to say Xander Horvath would definitely be your guy for sure. So he's definitely the one to look out for. Now that I think is the only backup. I think they have their fullback on there. Everyone else is on the practice roster, I want to say right now currently. So just in case, Horvath might be the next guy up if Butler was to go down with injury.
I'm trying to find him here on the roster. I don't see him for this week. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I just see
William thought he was
back.
The backup running back for BC on the
Usually
depth chart. He is, yeah. He's in that backup running back behind Butler. You talked about him a little bit there already. Big thing for me was that I feel like Jordan Terrell was the backup late last season and looked decent when he got a few opportunities. And that Horvath was able to kind of move up the depth chart ahead of him. They ended up cutting Terrell. Now they brought him back to put him on the practice roster. So, Horvath, he could make some plays happen if he gets in the lineup.
Yep, absolutely. You guys want to talk about some Blue Bombers next?
You betcha. Give me a second here. I'll just see if I can switch that over. There's one of the ones there, and actually one that I'm even excited to hear about. What can you tell us about Quentin Cooley?
Let's talk about Quentin Cooley. He's currently at the practice roster, but don't be fooled. This man is here to stay. He was really impressive with the coaches there at Winnipeg. They had high praise for Mr. Quentin Cooley. He's 23 years old. He comes from the same college as Mr. Frankie Hickson that you've heard of and a few other ones. So Liberty has a known record of really high-end running backs. Their system usually without they haven't had Malik Willis for a few years. Willis is now the backup there in Green Bay. Maybe Elgersma takes his spot. We'll see how that goes. I'm hoping not, because I would like Elgersma to be my quarterback, please, for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But anyway, moving on, his high hopes. Quentin Cooley, his college rushing stats: 522 rushes, 3,557 rushing yards, 33 rushing touchdowns, 11 receptions, only 82 receiving yards. Not much of a receiver. He can get it done, but he is quite the bruiser at 5'7" and 210. That means he's kind of small to the ground, really good elusive, hard to bring down, so you have to have a couple defenders on him. You guys might have saw some of the preseason action and stuff like that. Quentin Cooley was very effective, got high praise, and I think would be an outstanding backup. I do like Peterson as a backup to Brady Oliveira currently. That's two nationals, so you get your good one there. But if they need to change the ratio at any point because of injuries and or something happens and Patterson has to come in and is maybe not performing, Quentin Cooley would be my guy and my choice. And I was hoping he was going to be the backup, but I will take him on the practice roster. I'm just hoping no other team will scoop in and swoop him, because honestly, he's a great get. And I think he would be a good starting running back if given the opportunity, just like guys that we see now, like Dietrich Mills and the other ones that, given the opportunity, I think could run with it if they really, really got the chance to be a starter. But for the time being, I think he would be a great backup to the MOC candidate of Brady Oliveira for sure. So I'm very stoked to have him as a Blue Bomber. Let's just hope he doesn't get sniped to another team. So,
is there any kind of running back currently that would compare to Quentin Cooley?
I would say probably the closest one to him as far as like stature and things like that would be the guy we'll talk about in Montreal, who's also the rookie as well. I also think he's a little bit more thicker than Frankie Hickson. Hickson was more like your returner slash, like change of pace back. Cooley can do some of that, but he's mainly the bruiser. So he does compare more of an Oliveira type situation as far as how he can get out the backfield. So I think that's why he's a good fit for Winnipeg for sure. If I had to do his college fantasy production was mid to high. He would actually average around 15 to 20 fantasy points per game when he got the chance to do, especially moving over from, I think he was also at Wake Forest or at Georgia Tech, one of the bigger schools, and then came down here to Liberty, where they know how to use a running back very well, and that's where he made the most of it. And then only being 23 years of age, he's very, very young, so he's got some chance to really be in the CFL for a long time if he wants to make a name for himself for sure.
Perfect. I could also see him almost getting picked off of the practice roster if there's any real injuries coming up as well, because that is the option in the CFL, right? So
yeah, he might be this year's king of the preseason. I feel like his name was mentioned more than anybody else's name on this preseason.
Yeah, and he looked dominant when he was playing in Regina. He looked really good. So, fantasy players to watch, though, for the starting players that we have this week. What the heck? I'll go first because I've got one that in this game that I really like. And from Winnipeg, it's Jarrett Stearns. I really liked how he played in Saskatchewan. I was disappointed when Winnipeg picked him up in free agency. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts doing what Kenny Lawler does over in and what Kenny Lawler did for Winnipeg back in the day. So I could see him having a pretty good game this week. Might take time to get used to his quarterback. And again, it's not his starting quarterback, which could be a little bit of an issue as well. Although maybe Trey, you never know. Maybe Strevler gets the job full-time after this week. He's so good. But no, I don't think so. Anyways, on the BC side of the football, I think it's a no-brainer. I'm still gonna. Well, I don't think it's a no-brainer really. I'm gonna take Nathan Rourke probably as my quarterback for this week. He had a great week last week. This is a different team than Edmonton. Edmonton, it should have. Me and Ryan probably both screwed up on this one. We looked at the Hamilton-Calgary game last week and said, this is the game that you're going to get a quarterback with a lot of points. And then Vernon Adams goes and promptly gets pulled every time that they want to go and run the football into the end zone or, doing some other plays or whatever, right? So, yeah, didn't get a whole lot of points with Vernon Adams. I think Nathan Rourke is a one-man band, although Richard in the chat maybe has a little different idea for the quarterback sneak. So maybe keep that in mind, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to probably pick up Nathan Rourke this week in my fantasy. Couldn't be worse than last week. Let's put it that way. Ryan, what do you got for this week in fantasy?
I mean, yeah, Nathan Rourke had an incredible week. He scored more than the rest of Trey's team in our draft league combined. So really carrying the pillar for the team this week. My one big problem I have with Rourke is, again, what does that look like playing against this Winnipeg defense who shut everything down to the pass last year? It seemed, they were susceptible to the run. How much of that carries over? Are they better against the run? And that leaves more room for the pass. There's so many unknowns that I don't like a lot of the options from this game. Like, I want to take Rourke because I'm a big believer in Rourke and saw great things from him last week. And the short yardage might actually play into it and force me into that decision because I think he was actually taking the reps as the short yardage QB this week after Chase Bryce messed it up 3 times last game. So, if Rourke's going in for those goal line sneaks as well and getting those rushing touchdowns, that's huge for fantasy. So it might actually still trend me in that direction. I'm not sure I love any of the receiver options in this game, certainly not on the Winnipeg side. I don't have that much faith in Strevler as a passer. I don't know what the split of targets is going to be with this new Winnipeg offense. And BC, I'm still trying to get a feel for actually who's going to take charge on it because Berryhill was a bit of a surprise last week. Katoy was a bit of a surprise, and kind of McInnes and Hatcher, who you think are going to lead the way, were the two quieter for the most part until McInnes got his touchdown late in the game. So if I'm taking anybody in this game, it's probably Rourke at quarterback and then maybe the 2 running backs. I mean, Oliveira, especially if Strevler's in there and you have to account for is Strevler going to run it or is Oliveira going to run it? Seems like a pretty solid option to me, and I do think James Butler gets good usage in that offense. Trey, what you got?
Well, I obviously got Brady Oliveira in this equation because I think, he's healthy now, whatever was bugging him late last year. And if he did all that, even though he wasn't used a lot, he still ran pretty damn good when he got the ball, and that was hurt. So let's see what he does healthy. And on my quarterback, I'm interested in our fantasy league. I got both quarterbacks starting this game, so I can literally go whichever way. And all y'all are talking about, Nathan Rourke might do third yardage. Chris Strevler is third down yardage, man. Give me Chris Strevler. I'll tell Charlie Wallace, that's who we're playing head-to-head. I'll tell you 2 Yahoos in our league. Chris Strevler's my starter this week, and we'll see how stupid that was. And everyone else can I don't care. Brady Oliveira and Chris Strevler. I don't even need 5 more players.
Well, now the Trey's committing suicide in the fantasy. Brandon, what do you got?
It's all right, Trey. Live your life, man. Live your life. I'm going Brady O. Definitely, this sounds like a run-heavy game. Let's go Brady O. I'm going to ride the hot hand with Berryhill. It seems like there's a connection there with our Mr. Holland's no longer in the league. Nathan Rourke will make a new wide receiver 2. I still think McInnes will wind up being the wide receiver 1. He just maybe need to warm up a little bit more. But I think Berryhill and Rourke in the offseason has had some time to gel. You can see that. And so Berryhill, being one of the honorable mentions last year, has now kind of come to form and started to understand the CFL game. And so I think he's in full stride now like he was when he was in Arizona. So I do think Berryhill is what I'm going for. If you're needing the cheap play, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're trying to stack up higher running backs or get a flex in there, I'm not going to reveal my captain to whoever I'm playing. I think Noverby, I'm playing you this week. I will not tell you who my guy is. But if Wheatfall, if you're trying to stack in maybe somebody else, he's literally cheap at $5K on the fantasy website. If you're feeling froggy and you want to go that route, if not, Barry Hill's only $8K. He's a good option too, for sure. So, but Wheatfall would be like a pull if I really need to stack in some studs in there. So. But for me, I was able to move up on higher on Oliveira and then get Dietrich Mills in there to get a really good starting 2 running back lineup going on. So that's kind of what I'm feeling this week for this game.
Perfect. Like I said, all good fantasy picks. We'll see how the game goes here on Thursday night. If you could just put up the screen there to say what our betting picks were for this week, which is BC currently. Trey, first of all, how did we do last week? I forgot to ask. How did we do in betting?
Goodness, did I type it out somewhere?
Well, I can tell you what it was because I looked at it earlier. In outright betting, I know what's that? Outright betting, I think we were all 2-2, and the coin was 3-1.
I trust the coin.
The coin
right.
is,
Well,
the coin
to be fair, the coin does money line while we do the spread. So it is. I
love money line. Let's do it.
Which is fair.
I don't care if I didn't get any other game right. I told y'all about the Calgary Stampeders last week.
You did.
That's all that matters.
No, kudos to Ryan. He did call that one. I had no faith in him. Although, you know what? It was Hamilton in Calgary. I should have been smarter than that. It's usually Ottawa also that goes to Calgary and for some reason wins.
Yeah.
So
and then
what do you do?
Over under Adam, he did pretty good. He went 3-1. Ryan went 2-2. I hate over under. I don't bet it in real life. I went 1-3. So yeah, we're all at 2-2 against the spread. So it's anyone's game here. And this week, there's a lot of interesting lines this week. Where I wish we could look in a crystal ball and see what this line would be if Collaros was starting, and if it would be a 6-point swing. Would it be even? Very interesting. But +3. Bombers are probably not usually too many times underdogs at home because of a thing Ryan calls home field advantage that doesn't exist. You know what though? Bombers and the points. Oh, I got to take the Bombers +3 on that one. It's really tough. It's going to be a field goal game, but with the Rouge and everything, a field goal game could still be 1 or 2 points. Getting the 0 at the end there too gives me a good chance for a push. So I'll go that way. Over under 48.5. Even though there were some that didn't hit, there was a lot of points last week, wasn't there? A lot of teams scored 30. Let's go over. So I'll do that. And Mr. Adam with the over-under king from last week. Let's see what you got.
Well, I'm going to go under in this game here, and the reason being is because Chris Streveler's on the field. That usually is a good sign there's going to be an underplay right there. Sorry, I don't like Streveler very much when it comes to throwing a football. That being said, Brady Oliveira might run for 4 touchdowns. Who knows? And maybe Chris Streveler runs for another 4. But nevertheless, I'm very surprised about the line on this one here. Usually 3 points is for the home team instantly, and Winnipeg is the home team, yet they're 3 over. Odd. But I'm going to take the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to at least cover that. I think they'll probably outright beat it, to be honest with you. We'll see what happens here, but I'm going to go with Winnipeg. I'll go with the under. We'll try that out. Brandon, why don't you go next?
Sure. I'm going to take the +3 for Winnipeg. I don't know if BC has gone up against, like I said, it was the Elks last week. So I don't know if I quite trust BC just to take this as the favorite. And then I'm going to take the over because I do think Rourke will put up a fight, and I know he'll find whatever receiver that he possibly can to try to, get the points on the board. But I do think it's an Oliveira type game. Brady O, I hope, comes out swinging, and I think we're going to go to route 50 points. So I'm going to go over and then the +3. What about you, Ryan?
I'm going to take BC on the -3 here in this one. That feels like the pick for me, just because I don't know what to expect from Winnipeg yet, and maybe next week I'll take Winnipeg with Collaros back in as the starter. But I do like what BC did last week. They impressed me more than I thought they would. I thought their defense did better than I thought it would as well. And yeah, I liked what I saw from that offense. So I'm going to go with the Lions here on this one, though I'll be honest, I'm not 100% confident. And over under, I think I'm going to go with the under and agree with what Adam was saying.
Richard over in the chat just said that Winnipeg starts slow usually in the season and finishes strong. That's true. Last year, that's what happened. We'll see what happens this year. I don't know if it'll be the same thing or not. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Before we go on, I got to do the coin, of course. Feels very wrong to do a coin that's a Saskatchewan Rough Rider coin to flip when you're
rivalry
Bombers and BC Lions, but okay. Obviously, the coin is the home team for the Rider logo's home team. Queen's the away team. Give it a good flip, and if I don't lose it,
redo.
Nah, you don't get a reflip. It's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
I'll take it.
For some reason, the coin is deciding that the Bombers are going to win this one. So hey, make sure you follow along on our Discord channel too, and check out our picks at the end of the thing. And hey, put your picks up there as well. We want to see what you got. Like Richard over in the chat telling us that he was 4-0 last week. Let's move on to the next game. This could be a very, very, very long night if this keeps up. We've got the Montreal Alouettes traveling into Ottawa to take on the Red Blacks. Biggest storyline, I'm going to get it out of the way here first before all you guys can get to it. Ryan's pick of the year so far, Drew Brown, is currently off of the roster this week. It'll be Matthew Schultz that'll start for the Ottawa Red Blacks. Surprise, surprise, an injury of a quarterback with the Ottawa Red Blacks. Ryan, any thoughts?
Yeah, that obviously sucks to see. Drew Brown was kind of trending towards my MOP pick before the season began, and was really leaning that way after that Week 1 game where he threw 41 passes and over 400 yards and a couple of touchdowns, I think, and there are no interceptions. He couldn't have asked for a better statistical game, really, from him in that first debut, and I thought we'd see a lot of that from this year. And I'm really concerned about this matchup with Montreal with Drew Brown injured, and that was the biggest concern, was can they keep him upright? And they couldn't, and he took some hits, and he was injured as a result, and now he's out for Week 2. Doesn't sound like it's a long-term injury. They talked a lot about this week that it's more like kind of like a load management style of just making sure it's not going to get worse for him, which isn't the end of the world. But my big concern here with Ottawa is that they hardly ran the ball last week with William Stanback. They threw the ball a lot with Drew Brown. I don't know if they're a team that can throw a lot with Matt Schultz at quarterback. You also can't throw a lot against this Montreal defense, and you have to beat them through the run. So the big storyline for me is, how is Ottawa going to adjust their game plan with Drew Brown out and with the matchup this week? I kind of put it out on social media talking about, like, we shouldn't really be surprised that William Stanback didn't get a ton of usage because it's a Tommy Condell offense and he doesn't use his running backs. And he also really loves one Braylon Addison, to the point that on top of what else he does on the field, Braylon Addison gets a lot of those passes that William Stanback and a running back typically would. There may have been some poor wording choices in my mention on social media, which led to the point that one Braylon Addison actually did call me out on it and said, what the heck do I have to do with the lack of run game here? We cleared that up. We're good now, I think. But it was mostly a compliment of what he and his versatility can do in that offense, to the point that I did pick him up in our private fantasy league this week. So interested to see his usage in that Ottawa offense as a whole in this game against Montreal. Let's go to Brandon next. What you got for your storyline?
Yeah, this is going to be a week where I'm probably going to have to pick on Ottawa. First, they need to let Crum cook. I will always say that, whether it's in Discord or here, Justin Crum should be the quarterback. But anyway, I feel bad for Drew Brown because he was like on a hot streak. He was doing good. I like his mustache. It's pretty sweet, like I think he was doing good. He was in stride. All his receivers were catching. I was really excited to see Geno and stuff like that. I think Matt Schultz is probably capable, but in this particular case, Montreal's defense is outstanding. Just to see what they did against Toronto, almost probably revenge in their eyes, probably from the previous championship showdown, basically. So I think they came back with furiosity, and so I'm looking to put that stack against Ottawa until Drew Brown can come back and use those weapons that he has. I don't know if Schultz can kind of keep up with that. So I would be willing to play the Montreal defense. I know we'll talk fantasy, but I like Davis Alexander against Ottawa this week. I think that's a good one for him to kind of keep that momentum going. and also one Mr. Tyson Philpott. I think he's going to come back to form now that he's fully healthy. So I'm excited to see Philpott this week as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at is how does Ottawa look, without their captain, basically. Can they put something together? Is Braylon Allison just going to do a lot of running arounds? Is Stanback actually going to get more than 30 yards and a touchdown? Like, we're going to see if Ottawa is going to have to rely on these creative ways of getting the football and getting in there, or if they're just going to try to just run it down. I don't think it would be a good idea just to run and be one-dimensional against Montreal with such a good defense like that. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to this week. What about you, Trey?
This game's interesting. So another hot take. Well, not really a hot take, but I completely am opposite of Ryan. He's crowning Drew Brown MOP, and I think those stats are padded and overrated, and don't take any. It's week one. I mean, a lot of things like that. So he's out. So this game kind of turns into I want to see if Montreal can be more Montreal of years past. Like, yeah, they beat Toronto by 18, but Toronto didn't look to be firing very well either. They had lack of run game and other things. So now this is another big test. This is another division rival. I want to see if we got kind of the Montreal we had more last year, where what was Philpott going for 200 yards and 10 touchdowns a game, it seemed like. So I kind of want to see if we have a new version of that.
Kind of underrated here, now that you mention it, is that Montreal in their first 2 games of the season has gotten to play 2 backup quarterbacks in Nick Arbuckle and Matt Schiltz. So, beast of the East, and they get a favorable schedule to start the year.
Yep. Play Edmonton next week, and who knows if Fajardo may be starting. Sorry.
I don't think he will be yet, but hey, I sure would hope so. I did pick him up this week over in our fantasy chat, fantasy group. So yeah, I'd be okay with that. Brandon, let's move on to 2 players here. They're new in the CFL that we want to talk about. Let's go with the Montreal Alouettes first, who made a very surprising move by dropping a certain running back in the league and then adding a another running back in. What can you tell me about this guy?
Sure. So this is Trevor. I think it's Teese, right? I think that's how they said it on the broadcast. I want to go with. But Trevor Teese, Montreal Alouettes, there's a reason why they looked at Fletcher and was like, okay, I think we're going to be okay without it. Was surprising. Fletcher was a solid performer, pretty solid, was definitely relied upon. But when you get a guy that's 5'11" and 215 pounds, and you saw what he did in just small doses there, I think they should give him some more run. I do like Ellington. I think that makes sense for the ratio. But this is Trevor Teese. He's from South Dakota University. He is 24 years of age, so very, very young. So I think Montreal looked at that as well. It's like, hey, we get him on a cheap deal to start him off in the rookie year, and then kind of maybe he can work his way towards becoming our guy. He had 187 rushing tips for 1,172 rushing yards, 19 rushing touchdowns, 33 receptions for 385 yards. So he could definitely catch out the backfield as well with 2 receiving touchdowns. I think that production is now starting to transcend. And he was just, and I kind of noticed it too. And I think the announcers picked it up really well as well. Like, the guy's he's got that dog mentality. Like, he just knows, the kid knows how to play football. Like, I think he wants it, like he's hungry to become the starter. And so I think Arlington probably holds him off maybe 1, maybe 2 more weeks and before we might see the changing of the guard. Or if Arlington has a track record of being injured. Nothing against Arlington. I think when he's healthy, he does pretty well. But, I think if they want to take some relief off of Davis Alexander, their new guy now, I think Teese would be the guy to really kind of take that helm on there as well. So don't crown him just yet. I'm not saying that he's like their guy right away, but I think by the end of the season, we'll start seeing this name way, way more with Travis Teese. So he was my pick. College fantasy production, there's none because he played on the same level, the FCS level, as one that we'll talk about at the Red Blacks as well. Also another guy we'll talk about as well that's on Sask in their practice roster. But because of the FCS and NCAA, we can't play fantasy football with them. They have to be the higher level, like Alabamas of the world and things like that we get to play with. So fortunately, I don't got any fantasy production for him, but with those type of stats, I would say he'd probably be like the mid to low, like he'd be 15 fantasy points to 10 fantasy points. So we got close to 10. I think it was like 6 or 8 or something from him this past week in fantasy. And that's just as a secondary role behind Arlington too. So if one of these guys got it, if it's just Arlington or just Tease, you're looking at anywhere between 10 to 20 fantasy points there for Montreal. So that's pretty solid. So shout out for Trevor Tease for making this team.
Perfect. Yeah, let's move on to the Ottawa Red Blacks. This is a very interesting one because I seen him get a few yards and quite a few nice little yards against Saskatchewan last week. What is this guy all about, Keelan White?
Sure. So this is Keelan White, of course, the 3rd overall pick in the CFL draft this year. He's at the Montana as far as university, age 23, but he is from British Columbia, so he is a national, which is great for the Red Blacks to have some more for the ratio as well. College stats in his time in Montana was 161 receptions, 1,862 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns in the FCS level. That makes him one of the top 25 in the country, which is really good. A guy we'll talk about, like I said, on Sask, that does a really good kick return specialist. It was the only one that probably would overtake him as far as overall. Keelan White's got very sticky hands. He does the Spider-Man pose. He's got the sticky hands like Spider-Man. He's very quick and agile as well. We kind of saw that out of the slot back position there with Drew Brown. Also, be interested to see like if maybe he's used more for Schultz as almost like a blanket, kind of like we use tight ends in the American League a lot more as far as like quick ends and stuff like that. Keelan White being close to the quarterback and getting a head start is very quick and elusive. So at 6'2" and 190, he's got the height. He looked like he fit really good with those big guys with Gino and things like that. So I think he's a great fit. Kind of worried that he eats into Pimpleton's usage some because that's kind of a bummer because we talked about Pimpleton last year. And also, I think, talking with Ryan, that the move for Pimpleton into a different positioning in the wide receiver core has kind of changed things him for a little bit. Now, Keelan White's got that sweet spot that Pimpleton had, but that could produce, some fantasy points. And we saw him get a little bit of production with Sask. And I think that trend will continue, but I would probably wait and see if maybe when Drew Brown comes back. So I wouldn't play him this week per se in fantasy, but he's definitely a guy to watch out for. I think he could have some big weeks. It would just be hard to pick him because you're going against Hardy, Gino, it's going to be hard to pick him out. But if there's an injury to one of those two, or Pimpleton, White would definitely be a guy I would pick up if you're in a fantasy league seasonal, or if you're just picking him for the week for sure.
I do believe in our CFC fantasy league, Mike actually picked him up this week, and Keelan White's a huge benefactor of Nick Martiner having that season-ending injury in the preseason to kind of fill in as he's right into the starting lineup straight out of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, why don't we move on to fantasy picks? We were speaking of Mike having Keelan White on his fantasy team. Ryan, let's start with you in this one here. 2 fantasy players, one from each team, on who you're watching in this game this week.
Oh, gosh. In this game, a huge wrinkle was thrown into it. The second Matt Schultz was the starter. And I've been a big Matt Schultz guy, huge supporter of his. I just don't think he can move the ball downfield quite as much. That it's fantasy relevant. I think he'll be serviceable. Probably my pick is that Montreal defense because they were tenacious last week. They put up 19 points last week against Toronto, and Ottawa showed they can't keep their quarterback upright currently. And I could see Schultz making a mistake here and there. So that might be my best pick in this game is the Montreal defense. Sean Thomas Erlington, his price has jumped up to 8,500. I still want to see what the consistent usage for those Montreal running backs looks like at receiver and at quarterback. Alexander had a good game, but he wasn't flashy last week, so it didn't deliver a ton of points. I'll leave it to you guys to talk about some of the receivers who I think will probably be mentioned here as well. Same thing on the Ottawa side. I don't really know what direction to go there. I don't trust Stanback yet. I don't trust the receivers without Drew Brown there. Maybe it's Braylon Addison as my go-to pick there just because I think he will get some running back usage. He'll get some dumb passes. He'll get some plays downfield, and he could get some heavy usage there would be. But for me, it's got to be the Montreal defense. Trey?
Yeah, I agree with the defense. That's actually the one I'm looking at right now. And like you said, to me, I think you kind of have to put Phil Pott in there at some point. 14.8 points last week could very well be the play. And on the other side, I don't know who, but I think you could pick one Ottawa receiver. I'm having a tough time on which one, but like there's got to be somebody he goes to tomorrow or on Friday. So I'm actually kind of leaning towards White. Who knows? Because I actually kind of liked watching his play last week against Saskatchewan. So, but it could be Pimpleton, Hardy, or Addison as well. So it'd be interesting. Adam.
Well, just quickly on that before Adam goes, the one tricky thing with the receiving core this deep is like, yeah, who's going to be the go-to guy to get the ball? When you have a guy like Drew Brown throwing 40 times a game or Bo throwing 50 times a game, it doesn't really matter because they're all going to get enough opportunities anyways. But if you're not going to throw that many times, then yeah, that becomes a harder decision, like you said. Adam?
Yeah, the biggest pick, the best pick I can give you is Montreal defense. I mean, last week, Ottawa couldn't keep Drew Brown healthy. Apparently, Saskatchewan took him out. So, do you think they're going to have any better luck with the Montreal defense? Probably not. Beverett and Sankey getting into the backfield is a scary, scary proposition. And yeah, I don't like Ottawa's chances there. Receiver, I really like your pick, Trey. Tyson Philpo. The reason being is he had 2 drops that he would have had a lot more fantasy points if he didn't make those 2 drops. He probably would have been almost a leader for fantasy this last week. So Tyson Philpo is on my list this week for sure. Phil Potigas is on my list this week for sure. On Ottawa side, I don't mind Matthew Schultz for a very cheap pick. If you decide you want to go like with Brady Oliver and a very bunch of expensive picks, I think Brady Oliver is like what 15,000 now. So if you want to pick up some really expensive guys and you want to pick up a cheap quarterback, Matthew Schultz wouldn't be a bad pick. Plus, I bet you he's going to probably do his third yardage himself.
I'd imagine Dustin Crum keeps doing that.
Oh, right, Crum's doing it. That's right.
Yeah, don't slander Brandon's guy.
I'm sorry. Can't make fun of Crum. Anyways, the legend that beat Winnipeg. That's all I know. Anyways, you know what? Honestly, I don't mind Schultz though still as a pick for fantasy this week if you really need a cheap quarterback. So, Brandon,
really
what
quick
you got for this week for fantasy?
Really quick, Adam, since you said that, Matt Schultz at 6,000 or Chris against Montreal's defense or Chris Streveler at 7,500 against BC's defense? Who would you take?
Shields.
Debatable. Chris Streveler throws those wild picks once in a while, and it still bugs me.
He also runs 60 yards a game.
Runs 60 yards a game, but he throws those picks. The picks are costly.
Yeah, I think I'd go Streveler in that category.
Not as much in fantasy, though, so probably I should be taking Streveler. But,
Brandon, what you got?
Aren't you going to ask me who I'd take? No, just kidding.
Heavy all day.
Who would you take, Trey?
Oh, I'm never going to stop. Chris Streveler. Let's go. Thank you.
I thought you were going to take your number one quarterback, Zach Caleros.
When he's in, why do you think I have both of them on my team?
Caleros for MOP.
Honestly.
All right, guys. I'm gonna go. All right, guys. I'm gonna go Montreal defense. I'm gonna stack it with Davis Alexander, and I'm gonna take Tyson Philpott for the flex. I think you get all 3 of those in if you work and you get some cheaper options at receiver and or running back, depending on how you want to make that happen. But I was able to flex all 3 of those in, and I'm going to go with that. And Ottawa, absolutely nobody, because I don't want to deal with that carousel until Drew Brown gets back. So that's what I'm going to go with.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, when you don't get your starting quarterback, it's a tough thing when you're to try to do something with fantasy. Betting, let's get into this one here. Montreal is the 3.5-point favorites over Ottawa on the road, over under at 49. Let's go with Ryan first. Did he go first? No, Trey went first, I think, last time. Let's go with Ryan first. Ryan, what's your pick for this game here?
Yeah, well, the betting line's kind of interesting on this one because Ottawa was the favorite originally, and then it was announced earlier today that Drew Brown was out, and it took a little bit for the betting lines on some sites to update. So you realistically could have gotten Montreal as the underdogs in this game before that change. I am absolutely going with Montreal at the -3.5. I think last week showed that Montreal's my pick to finish first in the East, and they looked dominant in all facets of the game last week, and I expect them to be so again this week. I'm going to go with the under on this, though, under 49, just because I think, Ottawa, maybe it has a little more issue moving the ball against this Montreal defense. But I also think what we're going to see from Davis Alexander this year is not lighting it up on the scoreboard every single week, but he is going to be that kind of effective game manager role. So I like under 49. Let's go to Trey.
Oh man, I was surprised that Ottawa was favored even with Drew Brown. So give me the Montreal Alouettes. Yeah, I could see this being a touchdown game. Take it at 3.5 when it still is, and then I'll follow Ryan because then at least we're both wrong and go the under.
Taking you down with me.
Yeah, exactly. The Titanic. There's no women and children on this show, so we're all going down. Adam, who do you got, buddy? I'm tired. I'm sorry. I should go.
That's a weird way of putting it, but okay, yeah, sure. Anyways, no, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't need to explain why because all these guys have already done it. Montreal, and I'm going to go with the under on this game here, even though I probably should take the over just because I think Montreal is going to score quite a few points. But I don't think Ottawa's going to score many. So, you know what? Nah, Montreal, give me the under. Let's try that. Brandon, what do you got?
No surprise, Montreal, the beast of the East, negative 3.5. I'm going to go with that. Even if they were the underdogs, I would have took them anyway. I'm going to go with under, but I can't help but think about Philpott and 44 fantasy points stuck in my head. So I'm trying not to, jump on that, basically. So I'm going to take the under and go against my own thoughts, basically.
All right, perfect. And let's see what the coin has to say today. It is going with the Montreal Alouettes as well. The coin says Queens, so it's the Montreal Alouettes. Let us move on to the next game here. That would be the Calgary Stampeders after their impressive home victory against the Hamilton Tiger Cats travel to Toronto to take on the Argonauts. I think the biggest thing I got in this game is can Calgary kind of perform or repeat their performance. I thought they looked actually really good against Hamilton. They had a couple of plays even in defense that I didn't expect them to. They were playing very good, I thought. Dedrick Mills looked like a young Kadeem Carey or a Reynolds or a John Cornish out there. He looked like just any old dominant running back, which Calgary usually seems to find the best of all the time. So I want to see if they can do some more with Dedrick Mills out there. Receiving wise, they have the pieces. I'll give credit where credit's due. They have more than what I thought they did. Are they still a Grey Cup contender or even a playoff team? Teams all of a sudden will watch film here, so we'll see what happens later on down the road. But for now, hey, Calgary looks pretty good. Toronto, boy, I sure hope they figured out some way of making sure that Chad Kelly's taking his vitamins and making sure that he's ready to go as soon as possible, because I'll be honest, Nick Arbuckle looked like the old Nick Arbuckle of past last week against Montreal. Did not look impressive. That being said, why were you not running the ball against the Montreal Alouettes? Deontay McMahon, you got a guy that you obviously have confidence in. You got rid of Kadeem Carey because of him. Why aren't you running the ball, Toronto? I'm still yet to figure that one out. But yeah, those are my two takes. Brandon, let's go with you first on this one here for your picks of this one.
I never thought I'd say this, boys, but I miss Swag Kelly. Knucklehead that he is. He's a beast. When he's playing, when he's locked in, he's the man. Trey's got the ring and everything. He knows what's up. So I miss you, Swag Kelly. Come back soon, brother. But other than that, I agree. Something's off with Toronto. I'm just trying to figure out, maybe it's a slow start. Maybe they're pulling a Winnipeg. I'm not quite sure what's going on with Toronto. I hope they figure it out. I hope they kind of learned that. I did see their DeMonte Coxey, big fan of him. I think he's very reliable, regardless of if it's Arbuckle. Him and Chad Kelly are like really, really great friends. I remember watching that on 3 Down Nation with his interview. Him and Chad spent a lot of time together off and on the field. So I feel like when Chad comes back, Coxie's fantasy progress will probably rise. But to get consistent targets and him to pull it down, I do like Coxie as far as like him being able to hold on to the ball regardless if it is Arbuckle or anybody else that's playing there. So hopefully we still get that consistency there from Coxie. When it comes to Calgary, I'm intrigued. I like that. Maybe it was the Hamilton run defense. Sorry, Rick, a FM fan, if you're listening. I hope you guys figure it out, but honestly, I don't, because I'll be picking on you with any running backs that I find. And then we'll talk about another guy in the backfield that if Mills goes down, they have a veteran presence in the room that could get the job done as well. We'll talk about that shortly, but I do like, I found it interesting, VA doing all that to get to the end and then he just pulls it. But I like it. I mean, why not? Like if you're going to win with the run, then just smash the ball down. Like if they can't stop the run, don't stop doing what you're doing. You don't fix the wheel. You just keep the wheel going. So I was big on Calgary just staying consistent and then putting PJ in there. They're keeping VA healthy. I love that. So man, I kind of take it as a positive, even though they're trying to figure it out. I'm sure there's going to be games we'll have Biggleton and VA. It just might be like a couple weeks or depending on their matchup basically. But so I got high hopes for Calgary in this one. I hope Toronto figures it out. I really do. Their run game, they have really 2 excellent running backs, and we'll talk about one. And I really feel like if they're struggling with Arbuckle, maybe they focus on the run just like Calgary did. So maybe this might be like that's why the over-under. I don't know. I mean, it just depends on how many touchdowns Mills could probably put in the end zone, basically. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm very intrigued by this matchup.
Ryan, what do you got for or Trey? What do you guys got for a matchup this week?
Well, you can go first, Trey.
My thing I'm looking at is we all kind of were like really hesitant on anything Calgary running back wise in a lot of fantasy and a lot of our stuff. And then, Dedrick Mills gets the hat trick and runs for 100 yards and seems to be the guy. Antwi did pick up some yards, but Mills is definitely that one A running back right now on that side. And VA's performance is kind of what I kind of was expecting. If you looked at just his stats, you'd be like, you could see Calgary losing that game if it wasn't for all that running yards and the work that Dedrick Mills did. So VA kind of played on par of what I was expecting him to do in Calgary. And that run game definitely shocked me to the point where they somehow beat Hamilton. So, and yes, Ryan was right, but it's okay.
Sorry, I cut out for a second there. What'd you say, Trey? I cut out for a second.
They heard me. But also, but on the other side, I do want to see when Chad Kell is he still expected to be out for a little bit?
He was in pads today. Didn't sound promising.
You know what? I follow him on Twitter, and he follows me. I'll just ask him.
Okay, report back to us by the end of the night.
No. He has replied. Now, the level of soberness during that reply, I couldn't tell you.
Probably
he replied.
I think you should message him and just say "you good?" ? And see what
you in? You in?
You in? Let us know by the end of the night.
Yeah,
if he gives you a fist bump, he's in. If he doesn't, then you're not.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with fantasy and betting. But are you in?
Yeah.
Ryan, what do you got for picks this week for storyline?
Yeah, I talked about already, and Trey just reminded us that I was right about the Calgary Stampeders last week, but I was also kind of wrong, admittedly, in that I expected them to come out and surprise a lot of people, but they surprised me how they won, and we talked about, the reliance on the run game. Honestly, I think we've all just terribly disrespected Dedrick Mills all off season and start of this year. He was the 4th leading running back in the CFL last year after only playing with only 13 games played. And not really having a productive offense around him in Calgary. Like, he is the reason Kadeem Carey, after being the top running back in the CFL, was let go by the Stampeders to go over to Toronto in the first place. So very excited that I got Dedrick Mills in the 3rd bonus round as the 11th or 12th running back off the board in our fantasy draft. That felt like a steal to me. And I want to see if he can keep that up against Toronto this week, because interestingly, Toronto last season, you didn't run the ball against Toronto. Like, that was forbidden. You don't do that. And Montreal kind of came out and ran the ball like 5 times in a row on the opening drive, and then Sean Thomas Erlington got like 17 carries against Toronto last week. So, Toronto lost a lot of pieces on that defense this offseason. Now I'm wondering, like, our team's just not scared of that defense, and is Calgary going to continue that trend this week as well? And then I want to see the other side of things. Adam, you talked about the game plan there for the Argos. How did they only get a combined 7 carries last week? And how do they try to adjust that game plan this week against Calgary as well? And shout out to Calgary's defense. I think they played pretty good last week when none of us had high hopes for them as well against Bo Levi Mitchell. So, yeah, that's the major storylines I'm looking at here if you want to start getting into fantasy players.
There we go. We'll go into fantasy, but first let's go and talk about 2 players that are on each the teams for new guys on the teams, and let's start with the Calgary Stampeders. Brandon, who is this guy from Arizona State?
Sure. So he's currently on the practice roster, so keep that in mind. And he also means that he's up for grabs if anyone wants to grab him. But this is Eno Benjamin of the Calgary Stampeders, formerly of the Arizona State Sun Devils. He's 5'9", 207, very much the bowling ball one. A lot of people don't realize is that he spent time with the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL for 2 seasons and was a great backup, actually. So his college stats, he has 576 rushing attempts, 2,867 rushing yards, 27 rushing touchdowns, 82 receptions. He did 625 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns and 119 return yards. So his production in college was outstanding. His college fantasy production, we call it elite, 25 plus fantasy points a game. He was an instant starter for all 12 weeks, unless for his 1 bye week. So he's definitely relied upon as well. So also him being the backup there in Arizona, he spent with his 2 seasons, he had 11 carries, 431 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He did have 31 receptions for 235 receiving yards. So he didn't have any receiving touchdowns, but he did have a good point to where, like in NFL and fantasy production, he was a good spot flex start. Like he was mainly a bench guy. I keep forgetting the name of the actual guy that was in front of him, but every time that he was more injury prone. So, spent a lot of time actually playing running reps and running starting reps in the NFL. And that's to be, that's something to be, proud of. That's something where like he's a veteran presence. He's 26. I've noticed in the CFL, like you can elongate your career as a running back. You can be in your 30s like Kadeem Carey and a few other guys where you're still getting good production out of these guys. I know Andrew Harris did it for the longest time as well. So it's just one of those things where like, still got a lot left in the tank. He's spent the past couple of years just trying to get on a roster, and here he is now in the practice roster there with Calgary. And Mills goes down, or he decides he hates Calgary again and he wants to leave, or whatever might happen, or anything like that, or say something happens with Antwi, God forbid, we don't want anything happen to him. I do love Antwi a lot. He's a good change of pace back. But Eno Benjamin can get it done both receiving and rushing, so he's very much a versatile running back. So he's a guy I would look at. And then if you're another team in the CFL and you need a backup, Benjamin has the NFL experience. He also has the college experience, and he played at a high level. So he's a guy with a high motor, and I think he would be very capable of getting things done. So that's Eno Benjamin there with the Calgary Stampeders.
So this is a guy that's been only in Arizona with the Cardinals and with the Sun Devils. He does realize that it does snow eventually in Canada, right?
Exactly. Hopefully he doesn't pull a Mills and like, it's too cold. No, it was what? Carey? No, it was Mills that said that. Yeah. I was trying to figure, I was like, why is it cold up here? Because it's Canada.
And then we go over to Ohio State. This guy should be used to some snow, I would imagine. I think Ohio gets a little bit of snow.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us about Chop Williams?
All right, this is mine. Chop Williams, got the chops out, guys. Toronto Argonauts, 5'9", 225 pounds, out of the Ohio State University, the defending national champions, of course, for college. What can be said about Mayan Williams? I think we talked about a little bit in February when we did the free agency and stuff like that. Let's talk about his college stats: 258 rushing attempts, 1,555 rushing yards, 20 rushing touchdowns, 18 receptions, and 143 receiving yards. Keep in mind, Ohio State usually uses a 2 running back system. So a guy that was just drafted, Travion Henderson, to the New England Patriots. He was second round on there as well. He pretty much split time with Mayan. Mayan was the higher classman, the junior or the senior at university. for Trayvon Henderson come in, and then same thing when Mayan graduated, they brung in another guy, Quinshon Judkins, who is another guy that was drafted really high in the NFL draft as well. Ohio State puts up really good wide receivers, running backs, and they do really good with some quarterbacks like C.J. Stroud and a few other guys that you've seen in the league as well. But Chop Williams, high motor. The guy doesn't quit. He did have to overcome an ACL injury. That's the only reason why he didn't have more production and probably why Trayvon Henderson's there. But since coming back, he's been prolific. From what I was told on a lot of the Toronto podcasts and stuff like that, they were really high on Chop Williams to the point to where they felt comfortable with him and McMahon being those two guys, Mahan being, the guy that was on the roster with Carey and a few others. So I feel like Mahan has earned his starting gig, being there with Toronto for the few years. He's the incumbent starter. But if anything was to change or they don't think like he could get the yardage, Chop Williams can get it done. And he's just an absolute beast. And he's only 23 years old. So I meant to be 23, another young guy that could spend years and years in the CFL. Maybe he's looking for another shot at the NFL, but honestly, because of his previous injury, the NFL told him no previously. So maybe he's trying to put up a resume right now. But if he chooses to stay in CFL, or if, the Alouettes or another team offers him a very, comfortable contract, I could see him staying for a little while and staying up north. And he's used to the cold, like we talked about. He actually has seen snow, large amounts there. So he's very much capable of getting it done, and he's a little bit more wider and stuff like that compared to Dante. So it's a good 1-2 punch in Toronto. I hope they figure it out. But if push comes to shove and they just need to get one prolific starter, I put my money on Chop Williams hands down.
You're muted, Adam.
All right.
You had such a good run so far tonight.
I had such a good run. I was such on a streak for once. And then it all came tumbling down. Let's start with Brandon for fantasy picks for the Stamps and the Argonauts. Brandon, player from each team, who you got for fantasy?
No surprise. If I had to choose Toronto, I'm probably going Coxie as far as a nice blanket player, someone that can give you a nice floor. Even with Arbuckle, it seems like he doesn't stop him from pulling down catches. So I would probably take Coxie. And then let's see, for Calgary, I'm playing Dietrich Mills. I mean, he's in my roster this week. I'm going to play the hot hand until he can be stopped or someone can show me otherwise. I'm going to probably put him in until his bye week, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go Dietrich Mills. So I'm going to play the running back, and I'll take Coxie, the wide receiver. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I've got Dietrich Mills likely on the Calgary side as well. Underrated is the fact that if the offense, the passing game is more competent than it was last year, which it should be with VA, is it's going to lead to more red zone opportunities for Dietrich Mills, which is how you're going to get those 3 touchdowns that he got last week. So I like that play as well. If I go for a Calgary receiver, I'd probably stick with Bagleton. I know Clark Barnes had the better statistical day, but that feels a little more one-off to me. There was a big catch involved in there. I think Bagleton is just consistent, large target share, lots of yards, etc. On the Toronto side, I typically shy away from the Argos when it comes to fantasy besides Chad Kelly, just because they spread the ball around to all their receivers. Nobody stands out. The one name I'll give you if you want a value play for under $5,000 at receiver is David Unger III, who actually had a pretty solid week last week. He had 4 catches for 80-something yards, I think it was. And the last couple of years has kind of gotten a little more involved in that offense, which is cool to see. Trey, what you got?
Yeah, I kind of got one spot, and I'm him and Han between either side's running backs. Obviously, Dietrich Mills. My one concern was that just, opening day jitters, and had a great day, and watch him get 3 carries next week, and they go with Antwi for like 200 yards. Something stupid like that. You could see that. That sounds like CFL running. But I also do kind of like Toronto on the Toronto side. I know he had a quiet game in McMahon. How's he supposed to say it?
McMahon, I think it is.
McMahon, okay.
McMahon, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Deonta. You know what we're talking about. I think that he's better than what he showed last week, only picking up the 6.3 yards, but he's still very cheap as well. So that's kind of my 2 spots. Did everyone go? Is it betting time?
Nope.
Adam's
I
got to go
get
yet.
my players first. Yeah, the only one really, I mean, Dedrick Mills is a no-brainer. I'm going to take Dedrick Mills all day, every day when he's going to pull the yardage that he's pulling right now. Last week, I made a big mistake. I put Vernon Adams on my roster, and then suddenly everything was either handoff or PJ Walker running him in for touchdowns. So, I didn't like that. But you know what? Whatever, live and learn. Gun to my head for Argonauts right now. Gee, that's tough. Devontae Coxey definitely has a look at me. DeVaris Daniels, he's always a decent pickup once in a while. So, I mean, either one probably wouldn't be a bad one. Let's go with Devontae Coxey. I think that he'll probably have a better game this week. Let's just hope that also that Deontay McMahon has a better game this week because, that's how you end up with 60 points when you pick up players like McMahon and Fernandez Jr. Moving on, though, let's get to betting for this game here. Argonauts, of course, are the home team. I don't have the stat in front of me. Here we go. Argonauts are 1.5-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders. Brandon, I'm going to let you take your pick on this one here first.
If this was normal Toronto, I'd probably pick them. I'm probably going to ride the wave of Calgary. I think I'm going to take the plus 1.5, and I'm going to take the under for this game. What about you, Ryan?
I can keep riding with the Stamps here. I think this line could change as soon as Chad Kelly is officially ruled out this week, and that will make the Stampeders the favorites. And I think they're going to win this game. I am going to keep believing on them. You know, they're my team this year that I'm just picking to blindly champion every single week. You know, BC gave me a hat, so now I'm trying to get the same from the Stamps. So go Calgary this week. Over under, I'm going to take under the 50.5. I feel like I'm taking the under a lot this week, but I'm not feeling the points there on the board necessarily. Especially if Arbuckle's starting at quarterback.
Trey, what do you got?
You know what? I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with Calgary. Again, that 1.5, that kind of seems to me they think Kelly's going to start the line, but even if he does, you know, how effective he might be. So, yeah, give me Calgary, and I will take the under as well. Adam?
I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to take the Argonauts in this game, just from the negative 1.5 right now. And the reason being is, I don't know. I think that for some reason, Vernon Adams, when he goes to Toronto, yes, Richard, I read that in the chat, and I've seen it before that Vernon Adams does throw some very strange footballs when he goes to Toronto. Let's hope that Calgary learned how to pick him off. If they did, or if Toronto learned how to pick him off, I think McManus wants to have probably a pretty good game to come back on. He had a good game against Montreal. He's probably one of the lone pieces in there in the defense that was really standing out. But you know what? Why not? I'm going to go with the Argonauts, and I will go with the under because I don't know. I don't think either team's going to score a whole lot in this game. I think Toronto's defense is going to come back to roost. So, yeah. And also, I just can't stand the whole offseason. We were saying how Calgary is going to be terrible. Now we're picking to be 2-0. Come on. Can't do that. So I'm going to go with the Argonauts in this one here. The coin. Ooh, gave that a good flip this time. Where did that land? There it is. Well, coin's going for the home team on this one, Toronto Argonauts. Coin's smart. It knows it's seen something
that I thought we were friends.
I guess, yeah, you know. Anyways, the coin's going with the Argonauts. We'll see how that works out as we go to our last game of the week. This is a Saturday night game over in Hamilton in the old donut box. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are traveling to take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Storylines. Ryan, why don't you go first in this one?
Yeah, interesting storylines in this one. Obviously, everybody's watching the injury situation at the Riders' running back position. AJ Ouellette left last game due to an injury. Thomas Bertrand-Hudon came in, had a fantastic game there. They ended up signing Kadeem Carey to the practice roster. And there was a lot of talk, obviously, as soon as Ouellette went down, of Kadeem Carey, Walter Fletcher, who are we going to bring in? And my hot take is let Thomas Bertrand-Hudon run with it because he looked fantastic last week, and I think he looked solid last season. He deserves a shot. It seems like Ouellette's going to play. I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like Carey was more so actually brought in as like, hey, Ouellette gets injured quite a bit. Maybe we should have depth if we need it, and we might as well bring Kadeem Carey in, and less of, hey, he's injured right now. So obviously watching that on the Saskatchewan side. And all the injuries in general. On the Hamilton side, it was, last week, I kind of said, I think Hamilton's going to be really good this year, but I expect a week one letdown from the Ticats, and we got that. The offense didn't look good until the fourth quarter. That's my hot take on the Ticats, is that this is the exact same 2024 Ticats team, at least at this point in the season, that despite all those changes, did anything really change at all? And Bo Levi Mitchell struggled to move the ball down the field. They didn't get the run game involved. Now they got to face the Riders, who have a strong run defense. So can Bo get it together before the fourth quarter this week is what I'm watching from the Ticats standpoint. Because there's a lot of hype on this Hamilton team this year. But if they start slow early in the season, that is going to dissipate pretty darn quick. Trey, what you got?
I just kind of got literally what you just said, I guess, is just let's see what Hamilton can do. And I got what game are we on? I'm so tired right now.
We are on Saskatchewan and Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yeah, I want to see Saskatchewan because, again, with those injuries in the backfield, do they go with the Canadian? Do they let Ouellette come back and cook? And how long will Carey be on the PR? Adam?
Actually, I'll let you go first, Brandon, then I'll give an injury update because I've one for Ouellette and for Roland Milligan. So, Brandon, you go ahead.
Sure. First, I'm going to ask Adam what deal with the devil that Sask needs to make in order for the injuries to stop, because it's been plenty. That's got to stop for Sask. We got to do something, man. You got to make
whatever it takes.
All right. Well, we might have to call up the European League and see what they got going on too.
They got to figure out how to undo the deal with Drake, I guess. After Drake,
probably maybe this is a Drake curse. This might be a Drake curse. Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, what went wrong? I was like, wait, Drake had the Sask. Yeah, it was a very pure, very beautiful symbol. But anyway, I am very intrigued by Hamilton's run defense. I'm hoping they get it together. FM fan, when you watch this back, if you're not watching it now, I know you have a tie-in with your boys. You might want to go have a conversation, maybe a strong-worded letter. Let them know that run defense is very leaky, and I'm going to pick on them every week until they do otherwise. So I'm very intrigued. I've been watching the injury report closely because I feel like if you don't play a guy like Mills or Brady Oliveira, if you're going to go for another flex, I would highly be interested in Hudon if he actually starts. I do think they need to let Hudon cook. I am in that camp as well with Ryan. I think he earned it, but I know he plays special teams, and a 3-down nation was, I don't know, I take it with all a grain of salt because it's media, right? But, they're saying like Hudon does have a very, he's very involved with the special team. So that's why I think they're bringing Carey. But if AJ's back, I'm all steam ahead for AJ Ouellette. I know, concussions are different for everybody. So it really kind of just depends on how he bounces back. But I think him being really in shape and stuff like that, I think he bounces back pretty quickly. So I'm just hoping, he doesn't take two more of those or too many of those because they all add up after a while. But I'm very intrigued by that more than anything. And also, I think Bo Levi somehow will get another 300 yards passing somehow and spread it around. I think is Wolodarski back? Has anyone looked and see if he's I'm very intrigued to see the debut of Wolodarski in a different color scheme than I'm used to. So that's another thing for me. I call them the Hamilton Blue Cats, as a joke and things like that. But it is true. Like a lot of our guys in Winnipeg over there. So, I'm hoping they figure things out. But until further notice, I'm going to pick whatever running back starting for Sask against Hamilton until they can figure out their run defense for sure. How about you, Adam?
Well, there's going to be a little bit of an issue with the running back thing, though, because AJ Ouellette is not cleared to play yet. Roland Milligan is not cleared to play yet, from what I've been told and from what reports I've read from a few different sources on Xland that says that they have been cleared to practice. They can go and try it, like go and make some runs, do some things, but they are not cleared to play a game yet. So we'll see if that changes. That might change just before game time or before they jump on the plane to head to Hamilton tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. But don't be surprised if Hudon all of a sudden starts the game, and don't be surprised if you see Exume over in the backfield for the Rough Riders, taking back over for Roland Milligan one more game. They did bring in some help also for the defensive back and defensive line and also offensive line. They were banged up in the offensive line early. I believe it's Jacob Brammer was out last week with back problems. This week he looks like he's going to play, so the Riders will get him back at least. And the other ones are majors, so won't be a while there. Hopefully, I don't know, Brandon, what we have to do if we have to go down to Georgia to make a deal with the Devil. I don't know what it'll take if we need to do some voodoo or if it just takes, going and lining up every farm boy on the side of the field and dragging them out to Mosaic Stadium. I don't know what it'll take to get over this injury bug, but it's been a long time for Saskatchewan. And hopefully that changes sometime throughout the season here. They didn't look too bad, though, overall. You know what? In Saskatchewan, this has been the most amazing loss ever, or win ever, because everyone's complaining and whining like we lost the game. Everyone's whining about the injuries, whining about that we should have had more Andersons, whining about this and that. And you thought that we lost the game. I mean, overall, for probably 45, 50 minutes of the game, the Riders were in charge. End of the game, Ottawa came back in. But overall, I thought it was pretty good for the Rough Riders for a start for the season, especially with them dealing with injuries all throughout. Over on the Hamilton side of the football, boy, I thought that Bo Levi was going to have a plethora of weapons and he was just going to start launching them all game. I don't know. Maybe Winnipeg seen something of why they didn't re-sign some of these guys back, because honestly, Kenny Lawler didn't look 100%. Didn't look great. He looked okay, but he wasn't the big all-star target that we remember in Winnipeg. Wolodarski wasn't in the game last week. Overall, I thought they didn't do anything with Greg Bell, really anything serious. They were running again. They were running Bo a little bit, but Bo Levi Mitchell didn't quite look what he used to look like offensively. Defensively, if they're going to let teams run on him like that, good luck. Hamilton has no chance. That defensive line and linebacking core did not look good against Calgary last week. So that'll be the two things I watch, is pretty much the defense, a little bit of the receiving core for Hamilton. And I don't know if I have to go get a rosary or something to go and try to keep the Rough Riders standing. I don't know. Got to throw in a few Hail Marys, I think. So anyway, Brandon, let's move on to some of the players that have been added to some teams here. We're going to start with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. What can you tell us about Dre McCray? He looked pretty good as a special teamer, I can tell you.
He did. They call him Dre All Day McCray. He's with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders now, originally from Texas Tech. Before that, he played at the College of Austin Peay, P-E-A-Y, which is the FCS level, same as Keelan White and Travis Teese. But his time at Texas Tech, he had 41 receptions, 329 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and then he had 2 rushing attempts for 17 rush yards. But the big thing that stands out, 43 returns, 1,149 return yards, and 1 return touchdown. This is his claim to fame, especially at the higher rate. When it comes to college fantasy production, he was lower because moving up to a higher competition than Texas Tech. And then they had a new coach, and he really didn't know what to do with Dre. So really, he just put him as the main return. And I think that kind of stood out to the Rough Riders and bringing him into the camp. I know Mario Alford looked great this past week. I still think even with his age that Alford's still getting it done, but eventually they're going to have to change that guard. And I know there was a lot of talk of cutting Alford, but I'm glad they didn't. I mean, it makes sense, but it sounds like Alford's actually doing his part as the veteran to teach McCray the ways of the Canadian Football League. And I think Dre McCray could find a really great home as a solid returner. And then if you do good on special teams in return, that also gives you, most times, gives you more playing time, so I think he would be really good out of the slot back position, kind of like a Jared Stearns. This is what Jerry McCray at the FCS level, he was considered one of the best, to ever come out of the FCS. That's why he got pulled up to these higher end teams like Texas Tech. So he can get it done. He's a speedster, 5'9", 185. Like he's quick. He's thin, So like hopefully he's putting on some more weight, and they're feeding him good there in Sask, and they're getting him all that good farm food that Adam has and stuff like that. So hopefully they're feeding that kid. But he's super young, 22 years old, probably one of the youngest, in the league, hands down. So if they feed him good, they let him do the return. If Alfred goes down with injury, this is a great chance for McCray. He is on the practice roster currently, so that does run a risk. I know, like I said, other reports have reported that other teams, like if they need return help, they might look to try to poach him. So hopefully Sask can do something or move something around ratio wise, so maybe they can keep him as like a backup, wide receiver on the actual active roster. So then that pretty much doesn't take the place. But Jerry McCray is an outstanding wide receiver. That's a really good return specialist. So hopefully they keep him long term.
Absolutely. It looked like you lit a fire underneath Mario Alford in the first game, because Alford suddenly wanted to show up and look a little bit better than what he did before. Let's run over onto the Hamilton side of the football. Running back is what can you tell us about Trayshawn Ward?
Sure. So Trayshawn Ward originally at Florida State, but then transferred over to Boston College. He's 5'9", 191 pounds. He's only 24 years old. When he went to Boston College, he was able to kind of move. This is a Bill O'Brien offense. Bill O'Brien comes from, of course, Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots system. Very run heavy. So Trayshawn Ward wanted more opportunity because he was splitting time at Florida State. They were very much a 2 running back system. He wanted to be the bell cow. So he moved to Boston College. When he did, 389 rush attempts, 2,290 rushing yards, 19 rushing touchdowns, 60 receptions, 607 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns, and 178 return yards. So I know originally he was with, I forget what other team, but then they cut him, and Hamilton picked him up and then put him on the PR. But his college fantasy production, mid to high, 15 to 20 fantasy points, mostly every week. He was pretty much a constant starter in the college fantasy football realm. So I definitely feel like he would be good. Now, they have Greg Bell. They really have nothing to worry about. I know Greg Bell didn't look the same, but, Hamilton didn't really look themselves either in the first game. Maybe it might take them a little bit to kind of figure out with all those pieces. But Trayshawn Ward was a great get, I thought. Practice roster, I still feel like he needs to spend more time because they picked him up later in the preseason and then kind of just stashed him in the PR. But he's a sleeping giant. He's one of those guys to where, like, if given the opportunity, I think he could definitely show what he's capable of. Just like, Chop Williams, those type of guys, where if you get them out there and give them a shot to be the starter, I think they would run away with it. But it's going to be hard to toss because I love Greg Bell. He did really great at San Diego State. So Greg Bell's a workhorse. And so as long as Greg Bell stays healthy, this one is more like a stash or a guy that you would just look at to pick up only if there's an injury currently at the moment. But he was an outstanding running back, and so he needed to be talked about as a possible potential starter. Or if you ever see his name start, I think that would be a good opportunity for fantasy production for sure.
Absolutely. Comes from a good college, home of the quarterback Doug Flutie. So that's always a good sign as well. When you get a guy from there. Fantasy-wise, player from each team that you're looking at. Trey, why don't you go first?
In this one, just with the uncertainty at running back and stuff on Saskatchewan, I'm not sold on Trevor Harris. So maybe a couple of those receivers on Saskatchewan. Oh, I'm blanking. Who had the big game on last week?
Emilus,
thank you. Maybe him if he fits in money-wise. But, there's a lot of other receivers you can go to. And on Hamilton's side, I'm actually going to go with Kenny Lawler. Adam, you said he didn't do a good game. Still picked up 20 fantasy points. I mean, you can't really it's okay. If that's a bad game for Kenny Lawler, hopefully he gets me a good one this weekend. Brandon, what do you think for fantasy?
I'm thinking the same, sir. Definitely thinking about Lawler. Actually, I played him last week. I'm glad I did. It looked scary there at first, but it came through with that one. I did stack him with Bo Levi Mitchell. The Bo Levi pick was a little bit more disappointing than I was, but he got the job done basically. And I was lucky that I played captain for Greg Bell because at least it doubled his score to get me over 120 fantasy points. So, hey, I'll take it, even though it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting a lot higher score. Hopefully cracked, I'm trying to crack the top 500 in overall there on the CFL website. I got close, 547. We're getting there. But we're getting there. But I like them. And then I like Lawler. I just think he can be consistent enough to get the job done as a nice floor play, if that makes sense, like a nice continuous. I'm worried about Shamar Bridges right now. Hopefully that changes and things pick up. Maybe it might be a different receiver each game now because Hamilton has a wealth of talent there. Like I said, they're the East version of what Winnipeg was with all those extra receivers that they could have and stuff like that. So that's a little tougher to do. And then I would, whoever's starting for Sask, if we can get something before game time, I'd be willing to swap them in, before the countdown stops. So, because until proven otherwise, I'm going to pick on Hamilton's run defense. So, I'll go with whoever. Hopefully, it's Hudon. I would love to play him for a cheap price, and hopefully he pops off. So that would kind of be my hope and prayer. But if not, if AJ's back, I'm hoping that he can still smash on this team. So that's who I'm going with. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, the slight issue with this game, I mean, now that I guess it's a doubleheader on Saturdays instead of Sunday games, so at least you'll get the depth charts on Friday before the Friday nighter, so you do get some of that flexibility. I guess it's not as bad as if it was the sole Sunday game, but you'll need to leave room with whatever you do Thursday night, I guess. I got a lot of options from this game that I'm looking at. I think my lineup's going to be pretty heavy on this game. I'm considering both quarterbacks. Trevor Harris looked pretty solid last week. I think he didn't have to do a whole ton because Ottawa kind of gave him a lot of good field position, and the offense was able to convert it. I really like Sam Emilus of the receivers in Saskatchewan. I think he's the biggest volume-heavy guy. I still think if you want cheap plays, Keyshawn Johnson, Dante Myers are like $7,500, $5,000 in starting receivers. That really good deals if you need a cheap play there. I am strongly considering Bo Levi Mitchell as my quarterback again this week and running back the Bo Levi and Kenny Lawler stack once again, because if Bo is going to throw 51 times a game, like it doesn't matter if they're going to win or not. Last week they didn't look good for 3/4 of the game. He still put up over 300 yards. And I think, as he develops more, as the team gets more on track this year, they are going to put up more yards, more touchdowns, more points collectively as a group. And if he's throwing 50 times a game and 13 of those are going to Kenny Lawler, Lawler's probably only catching like 6 of those, to be honest, like he did last week, because most of them are air balls, but he's going to come down with some of those and he's going to make some points happen out of that. Running back situation, I don't know what to do with Saskatchewan's running back situation right now, and Greg Bell against the Riders defense is a little bit scary. The only reason I'd consider him was he had 7 targets and 6 catches last week. So whether he runs the ball or not doesn't really matter to me if he's going to do that. Who hasn't gone yet? Adam?
Yeah. The only ones that I could really tell you that I'll definitely put on my roster this week right now for any of these games. I like Kenny Lawler because he keeps burning Saskatchewan every time that they play. Although I gotta admit, Amari Henderson is now not on the Rough Riders, so you never know. Maybe that'll make a little bit of a difference. But no, Keyshawn Johnson is one guy I really do like. I had Sam Emilus last week, and I know that Trevor Harris likes to rotate his receivers around, so I think I like Keyshawn Johnson in this game. Hamilton side of the football, they got to use Greg Bell eventually, don't they? Although that being said, you're running against the Saskatchewan defense, which is usually pretty good against the run. Hard to say. I'm probably going to keep one of my spots open to see who the Rough Rider running back is. Although I think it's going to be by committee, to be honest with you. And especially if Ouellette's down and out, I don't know if they can activate a practice roster player quick enough. You never know. It could be Kadeem Carey all of a sudden. Let's run over to our betting side of the thing. Trey, this game here has Saskatchewan as the road warriors, essentially negative 3.5 over the Ticats, with the Ticats being at home. What do you got in this one?
I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to go with Hamilton, the plus 3.5. I don't think they're as bad as they looked last week, and it just might need another week of being together, and they'll look a lot better. So I'm going to go Hamilton plus 3.5, and I'll take the under. I think I went under on like all four today, but 50.5 is a pretty big number. Brandon, what about you?
I'm gonna go Sask with the minus 3.5, and then I'm probably taking the under in this situation. Although it could, I'm gonna still stay under for right now. I'm just not feeling the number of 50.5. It should be a little lower. What about you, Ryan?
I'm going to go the over on this one because I think, the Ticats put up a lot of points in garbage time, and Saskatchewan last week gave up a lot of points in garbage time. So this may very well be a close game, but it's going to be over 50.5. I am going to take the Riders to win this one because I think they did look really good despite all the injuries last week. So I'll take them at the minus 3.5. But I do agree with what Trey was saying, that as the season goes along, Hamilton is going to get better and better. And, if they play again in a couple of weeks, maybe I would pick differently. So give me Saskatchewan for now. Give me the over. And there's a question in the comments here. Where are the charts with where the good matchups are at? I'm assuming that's my fantasy charts that I put in the Discord. Last year I was doing it every week. This year might not be so weekly. It's too early in the season, really, to start defining those charts because I can tell you what position gave up the numbers last week, but it's kind of meaningless to some degree because we don't know if that's a trend or a one-off. So typically I don't start putting the positional matchup charts. Don't start using them, I would say, until about a month in, once we have a couple of weeks of data. So stay tuned.
I'm going to just cheat and use Ryan's one theory, though. What was it, 2 weeks ago? I think you said quarterbacks like to look to their left before they like to look to their right. So just a little bit of a hint in case you're looking for some easy picks on this. I'm going to go with, I don't like that half. I really don't. Just because then it's a kicking game or just over a kicking game. I'll go with the Rough Riders. They probably should win this one here. They are injured a little bit. We're not sure on the running back, but I think it don't matter which one they put in. They're still going to have a good running back out there. And Hamilton can't defend the run. Prove me wrong, FM fan. Prove me wrong. Anyways, I'm going to go with the under as well. It could be a close game. I don't know. I think that this is going to become a defensive battle on one side of the football and maybe one to prove a point that they shouldn't have given up what they gave up last week in garbage time. That being said, they might do it. The coin. Let's see what it tells me. It shows me the Rough Rider sign, so I guess we know what that means. It's the Rough Riders are going to win this one here against Hamilton. Put it down in your guaranteed bets. The coin said so. Nevertheless, anything else we need to run through here this evening? We're a little bit over what we usually do. Not as bad as what Ryan had the over-under, though, for us. So,
yeah, I did put the over-under at this episode on, what was it, like 2 hours and 26 minutes or something like that? We're an hour and 48 in. So, actually decently on track. But I think it's time to get into wrapping it up.
You bet. But first, I just want to run through fantasy for this week. Obviously, I've been roasting myself all week because my CFL Game Zone score probably deserves to be roasted. 60 points. Yeah, just real classy. Puts me in absolutely last place in the CFL Podcast Fantasy League. Puts me in absolutely, almost last place in the CFL Football Fans Fight Cancer Fantasy League. And, of course, it puts me right at the bottom of all of our Discord fantasy leagues. Trey, what can you tell us about the rest of the Discord fantasy league?
Oh, boy. So, first week, we all lost, didn't we?
Yeah. Except for Mike, who beat Adam.
Right, Mike beat Adam. Brandon gets the win, though. He got the win over Extreme 88. Congrats there. And I got to give a big shout out, Richard in the chat. He had a top score at 138.8. And after a quick search, he's currently 252 in the ranking. So pretty good. It won't let me scroll down to go see how far Adam is. So
5,000 easy.
I'm just going to visit the bottom so I can go and see if I can make a deal with the person on the bottom to make sure the Rough Riders don't get injured again.
But yeah, actually this week we got who we got. Brandon, yeah, you got No Good, Noverby. I got Charlie. Ryan's got Waldo, and Adam's got Sandwiches. Did I say Mike's? Oh, and Mike's got the Extreme. Yeah, so pretty good. Pretty good. What else do we got? Oh, you're muted, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, yo.
I'm just switching it over here. Okay, so I'll just run through CFL Podcast Fantasy real quick. Ryan, you had Greg on Sports from the Piffles podcast, beat him by 6 points last week. I had the Elks herd, didn't lose by actually that much, to be honest with you. 81-60, which is, yeah, you know what? It's the start of the year for everybody. And Trey, if I'm looking right, you have the Turf District podcast. I think that's Andrew, I think is what that one is. Yeah, we won't talk about how that one ended. This week, we've got myself. I'm taking on, I believe it's Joe Pritchard from the RWB podcast. Ryan, you are taking on Sheldon Jones of the 2 and Out CFL podcast. And Trey, you are taking on Kayla from the Turf District podcast as well. That's how it's going to shake out this week. Good luck to all you guys. And Brandon, hopefully you have some good luck as well with your fantasy as we see it here. Let's get to wrapping this up.
Hold on. We have to talk about We have to talk about the most important fantasy league update of them all, which is the private CFC draft league. Which, in true typical fashion, Team Ryan jumped out to a commanding lead over everybody else in week number 1. Adam's currently in second, 50 points behind me. So we'll see if we can keep that going this year. And like I said to the guys before the show, you beat me last year, Adam. If I come back and win this thing again for the 3rd time in 4 years, I will be more insufferable than ever before.
Oh, more. Oh, boy.
All I could say is Brady Oliveira had a bye week last week, and I still have Brady Oliveira. That's my trump card.
And in the questionable decisions of the week, Adam did drop $36 on Kadeem Carey, who is on the Riders practice roster currently. The next highest bid was $1. So
watch him. I get added to the regular roster this week and get 200 yards against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Then all of a sudden, the $36 looked like a great investment.
If that happens, I'll give you $5 of waiver money for free.
Yeah, well, that's recorded on the podcast, so just
Fair deal.
Need that $5.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, let's get going and ending up this and for coming and putting up with our shenanigans this evening. We always appreciate it, though. We'll be back next week, of course, with episode 290, which will be our week 3 preview show. There is a lot of great things going on in our CFL on our Twitter page, CFC Countdown Pod. Make sure you check that out over there or on Facebook at facebook.com/CFC Countdown Pod. And of course, you can check out all the other great shows from the Canadian Football Podcast Network, as well at CF's Podcast Network on Twitter and Alternative Football Network. Make sure you check those guys out as well at the official AFN on Twitter or on alternativefootballnetwork.com. I'll get you guys to run through what's everything going on for you over in the social media world. I'm going to start with Ryan because he was actually busy on social media this week.
Put Nathan Rourke in the CFL Hall of Fame campaign is back in true fashion once again. That was my tweet of the week on my personal account, which you can follow me on X at CooperTrooper42, on Blue Sky, same thing as well. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of posting from the podcast accounts this week, and I'm going to try to keep that up throughout the season here a little bit. So Adam ran through the socials there on Facebook and X. We're also on Blue Sky at CF Countdown Pod there as well. And I'm posting a lot of this stuff in the Discord also. So check the link in the episode description to check out the Discord. And like I said, might not be on the podcast a whole ton this summer. Might be back next week again. Might not be. It's kind of up in the air right now. So if you want my thoughts in between, follow us on socials, join the Discord, and give us better hot takes this week for next week's segment.
Ryan
Trey?
Coop, the official GTD of the podcast lately. So, nevertheless, Trey, where can people find you?
You can find me at the X at Trey MB Harness. Always got some fun stuff going on over there. Anything degenerate, it is what it is. UFC this weekend, horse race this weekend. I'll be on Twitter.
Sounds like a plan.
Brandon,
All good vibes.
All good vibes.
All good vibes.
All good
Exactly.
vibes. All good vibes.
You betcha.
Brandon?
Brandon, where can people find you? I think you have your you have also a podcast that you would like to probably promote a little bit, I would think.
Yeah. So you can find me on X at CFF University as well as Blue Sky. I'm not on there as much, but hey, I like to repost some things. So it's on there. Go check it out. I recently have decided to reintroduce the podcast, but as a new name under the Global Fantasy Podcast. So I will be now dabbling in the worlds of not only just CFF like I was doing with the freshmen, but still talking some NFL from time to time. But I am going to start talking about some CFL fantasy. So if you're looking for a lot of this content that you hear here, I'm not trying to take any thunder from, this podcast, but we'll be talking about just like niche stuff, things like that, maybe rankings or maybe strategies, things like that, stuff that I've kind of seen in the past few years by being a new CFL fan and in fantasy and what we can kind of take to go on there. And I've also started to watch ELF, which is the European League of Football, which replaced the NFL Europe. They got some pretty standout players that I think could be good global players in both the CFL and the NFL if push comes to shove. So I'm still learning about that. That's fairly new for me, but I'm going to start dabbling and doing some of the content. So whether it's in podcast form or you might see some good graphics like you saw tonight, you'll see it on X or on Blue Sky, trying to promote that and just telling people like you can play fantasy football year round. So you don't have to wait for the summertime if you're a CFL fan. Don't have to wait for the fall if you're an NFL fan. There's plenty of stuff to do. I wish UFL would get their stuff together so then they can actually have a fantasy other than DraftKings because I don't like playing that. But if they had a season long, it'd be great. Also, shout out to the DC Defenders. Please win. And then also shout out to my Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Good luck this weekend, guys. Strevy, do work, buddy. But yeah, that's where you can find me, guys. And appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure. And like I said, if you need me as a backup, you know where to find me, guys.
Well, definitely we'll be looking you up, I'm sure, a few times this summer here. The door is always open. Also, if you got some more insight and some more of the players, definitely we want to have you on here as well. And if you want more from Brandon or from Trey or Ryan or any of us, or maybe even me, I don't know what you want to know from me, but you can head over to the Discord channel. We've got lots of great information there. Ryan's going to have his charts once in a while. Of course, you can post your hot take there if you got it. Make sure you check out our Discord channel. It definitely is worth the look at. If you're a really diehard CFL fan, we've got some great information always on there and usually right up to date for what's the latest news pretty much within 2-3 minutes. If I don't get it, FM fan gets it, or one of us get it up there almost right away. So make sure you check out our Discord channel and whatever podcast platform you're listening on. We appreciate it if you do all the other fun things like liking our page, commenting, subscribing, rating, reviewing, sharing the show with your friends, and just to help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. So on behalf of Trey Colbeck, Ryan Coop, Brandon Sanders, and myself, I'd like to thank you very much again for watching here this evening. Have a good one. Bye-bye.